Hello everyone, I am Renato from Guitars AI, and on this video I will talk about research assistant salaries in Germany. So I'm here on LinkedIn and I searched for research assistant jobs, and when we're dealing with research assistant jobs in Germany, we are talking about Wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter. So, a translation for Wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter can be research associate, research assistant, scientific assistant, research fellow, scientific staff. So here you find many examples how Wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter is used, and the translation, so let's call it research assistant. So research assistant jobs are very interesting for PhD students. So some PhD programs, they are funded, so you have some kind of scholarship to study and to research, but a lot of PhD programs, especially the ones that are not structured, that you only have your PhD supervisor and you're doing your research independently, then you don't have funding. And these jobs can be really interesting as they pay you a good amount of money for you to survive, and also it's sometimes flexible in terms of hours. So we will see that, for example, in this job here, it's 100%, so that means that it's a full-time job, but we find also 50% jobs, 60%, 75%. And this can be very interesting for PhD students who want to do its PhD research but also work. So as you don't have funding, you can support yourself by working for the university. Sometimes it's in a project, sometimes you are professor assistant, so you give lectures or you run laboratories. So it really depends on what's on offer. And here I selected a few jobs so we can take a look, and I'll talk specifically about salaries and how to calculate how much money you should expect. So for example, here we have this Wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter from the Bundeswehr University of Munich. So there will be the job description. So a lot of times it will be only in German, but you also find in English. But one thing to have in mind this time is this here, the Entgeltgruppe 13 TVöD. So this is some kind of complicated thing, but I'm going to show you what it means. In this case here, this is from in Darmstadt, this is the Fraunhofer Institute for Sichere Informationstechnologie, and here there will be the description, and also we also find this TVöD, so the Tarifvertrag für den öffentlichen Dienst. This one here is from the RWT8 Institute for Technology, and here we will have that it's 100%, and in this case is the TVL 13, so the TVL 13. This one is from the Technical University of Munich. This we also find here the TVL E13 100%. So as I explained, this means that it's full-time, and this salary is given by this code here. And finally, another job that I have here is in Jülich, and here we will see somewhere will be this is the TVöD Bund Entgeltgruppe 13, so also this TVöD 13. So if we go to Wikipedia, you go to the Tarifvertrag für den öffentlichen Dienst. This is the TVöD. Unfortunately, there's no English option, but we can Google Translate, and here we'll have this, what it means. So it's the collective agreement for public service. So in Germany there are several collective agreements for employments, in the public sector, and this will define salaries for people working on the public sector. So we have the TVöD E and the TVL. This is Tarifvertrag für den öffentlichen Dienst der Länder. And here also we can Wikipedia and Google Translate. So this is a collective agreement for the public service of the federal states. So the TVL has been in force since November 1st, 2006, and it replaced the different collective agreements for white-collar workers. In terms of content, the TVL is largely identical to the collective agreement for the public sector, the TVöD E. So it's not that different, but still it is very confusing. I still don't understand completely all the different categories, and sometimes it's different in certain regions of Germany. So it can be that we will find here all this TVöD E, Bund und Süd, all these different strange categories here, but this will give you a general overview of the amount of money we are talking about for those kind of jobs. So here we have the TVöD E Bund, and here we have the TVL E13. So as we've seen, there are different categories, and usually for this scientific staff you will see it will be this group 13, and this is why I'm here on the group 13 and group 13 here. And usually those jobs requires that you have a master's degree. So if you have a bachelor's degree, you'll be in a different category, a different kind of jobs that you can take. For Wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter, of this research assistant in university and research institutes, usually you will need a master's degree. And here at this site, this öffentlichdienst.info, that you can see here, let's zoom in so you can this website here, they offer different calculators. So we have this TVöD E Bund, VKA, Sozial something, Pflegepersonal, Sparkassen. So there are different categories. In the case we've seen jobs for this TVöD E Bund, here you put the group, so it's the group 13, and then here you can change if it's not 100%, if you want to know how much you will get if you get a 50% or a 75% job. Here you can put your Lohnsteuerklasse, and this is your tax group. So in Germany there are different taxes, so from 1 to 6. So it depends if you're single, if you're married with children, if your wife, your partner receives more or less than you, and it's really complicated stuff. I don't fully understand it. I just know that mine is 1. So I am a single person without children. So they said that I am the Lohnsteuerklasse Nummer 1, and then here you can put your different complicated things if you know what it means, or if it's mentioned in the job description. If not, still you will get a good understanding, at least the basics of how much we're talking about. So for this group 13, and this means also that the more you work, the more years you work in the same group, but you have increase in salary, and this we can see here. But when you start, you'll see that you have a salary if you work 100% in this TVöD group 13, that you have a brutto salary of 4,113 euros and netto goes to 2,494. So in the year you have a brutto of 51,828,000 euros and netto it means 31,126. If you go to the TVL, here we have a bit less, and then we see that the TVL for group 13 we have 4,188 euros per month brutto and 2,531 netto. In the year we have 52,153 brutto and 31,000 netto. So there are different types of taxes in Germany. So you have sometimes there is this Solidaritätszuschlag. So if you live in certain areas of Germany, which used to be the West Germany, you pay a solidarity tax to compensate for the years of the DDR. We also have the Krankenversicherung, which is your health insurance. You have your Rentenversicherung, which is your retirement insurance. You have your Arbeitslosenversicherung, which is your unemployment insurance. And it's very complicated. You really need an accountant if you want to understand everything. But if not, here is just an example. You are from this class number 1, which I told you about, and you can set it back if you're a different class. And here we have all these taxes and versicherungs, like insurances, and in the end you have the salary per month of 2,500. And here, so it's really similar, the TVL and the TVöD, and it's not that difference if you find out if you're in a different category here. But this is just to give you one idea of how much you should expect if you get one of these research assistant jobs in Germany. We can also, just as an example, if you get a part-time job, so it's a 50%, so you have more or less 1,500 euros netto per month. So after it's discounted all the taxes and insurances you have to pay that are mandatory, you end up with 1,500 euros per month. And then you may ask yourself, okay, so I have a part-time job, I'm doing a PhD, and I want to work part-time, and I'll get 1,500 euros per month. Is it enough to survive? So at the TVöD, they have this cost of education and living. So they say that Germany is not particularly expensive compared to other European countries, but here they say more or less how much you should expect to earn. First, if you need a student visa, you need a proof of financial resources, so you have to demonstrate that you have 861 euros per month or 10,332 euros per year. So this is a requirement for certain types of visa and student visas, and you must demonstrate that you have this amount of money. So sometimes they ask you to have a blocked account. That's called the Sperrkonto. So you have this blocked account and you put this 10,300 euros there, and they will just let you use 800 and something euros per month. There are other different types of visa, but this is what they expect. So with this amount of money, you is the minimum required for you to survive. So here they have some living costs. On average, a German student has expenses of 819 euros per month. So it really varies depending on the region you are. So if you are in Munich, you may spend much more than if you are in Ilmenau, as I am now, or if you are in Hamburg and Berlin, you should expect to pay more or less depending on the region you are, and especially the cost of rent. Sometimes as a PhD student you don't get easily these student apartments or student dormitories, and you need to pay a normal rent. And in areas like Berlin and Munich it can be stratospheric, sometimes much more than this 800 euros per month that they are telling here that you can survive on travel expenses, food, clothing, rent, learning materials, health insurance, phone, internet, and recreation activities. Be aware that it is possible to survive with 1,424 euros per month if you take a part-time job as a research assistant, and you would get 2,500 euros for a full-time research assistant job. So it's not a bad salary. And here you can, in this website here, you can check different categories depending on the job that you find. So have in mind we're talking about Wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter, or research assistant, scientific staff. As we've seen, there are different translations to this nomenclature. So that's it. We've seen how much money you should have. We've seen different types of agreements, so the TVöD E or the TVL. We've seen that it's in almost all these, in the public sector you'll find this kind of salaries used, and a lot of startups and some companies that are not on the public sector, but they also offer similar salaries for similar positions, like research positions. And then finally we've seen the living costs and how much money you need to prove if you go for a student visa. And have in mind that it's not that easy that you are just a student, you want to do a PhD and then you already get your job and everything's fine. No, sometimes you get your PhD without a job, then you need to come first and you need to prove that you have this amount of money. And when you're doing your PhD without any funding, and then you apply for a job at your university or a scientific institution, and then you get a job. So it's not that simple. Of course it's possible, a lot of people do it, but it's not a piece of cake. It's not extremely difficult also, but you need just to be aware of such things. Well, that's it for today, and I see you on the next video.